Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Macabre Matinee with Craig and Sean. And I believe this is episode 19, and I believe that because that's what my notes say. Uh, As per usual, I'm Craig Lance.
And I'm Sean, bearded Capolitan.
And yeah, this is where we issue our weekly spoiler warning. We are going to be talking about Wes Craven's New Nightmare. If you haven't seen that movie, now is your chance to pause us and go watch it, and then come back and listen to our less than brilliant review of the movie. Yeah, as I said, this is Wes Craven's New Nightmare. It was released in 1994. It's written and directed by Wes Craven and is by far and away the most meta of all of the movies.
Yeah.
Uh, it has Robert Englund, Heather Langenkamp, John Saxon, and Wes Craven all returning and or appearing as themselves in this movie. And of course, Robert Englund also plays the new and improved Freddy. This also stars Tracy Middendorf as Julie the babysitter. Tracy is very recognizable to people from my generation who will remember her from her time on Beverly Hills 90210.
Uh,
She was also on 24 and she was on the Scream television series. So,
I
which
forgot
was
that was
also
the thing.
directed by, yeah, also directed by Wes Craven. So, and then Miko Hughes stars as Dylan, the creepiest of all children. And if you're wondering where you've seen him before, he played none other than Gage in the original Pet Cemetery movie.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So he is very creepy in both movies, and I imagine that's why he came into this movie. So this movie begins with Freddy's glove being built, and as the camera pans back, we see that this is actually on the set of a New Nightmare movie. The practical effects man on the movie is Chase and is the husband of Heather, who is on the set along with their child Dylan. As they begin to leave the set, the glove comes alive and kills two of the guys who work for Chase. It turns out it is Heather having a nightmare, and she is woken by Chase and an earthquake. When she awakens, she realizes that Chase has a cut on his hand that matches her dream, and this all begins to seem a little too familiar to her. That day, Heather has a TV interview discussing her time on the Nightmare series, and during the interview, Robert Englund is brought out on set in full Freddy regalia, uh, which, based on her dreams and these random stalker phone calls she's getting from somebody claiming to be Freddy, freaks her out quite a bit. As she leaves the set of the interview, she gets a call from New Line Cinema, and they want her to be in a sequel. And they have brought back Wes Craven, whose nightmares have returned, and he is writing a new script. When Heather returns home, Dylan is having a seizure while sleeping. Julie, the babysitter, is trying to wake him, but isn't very successful. And finally, Heather is able to waken Dylan from his dream. She calls Chase and tells him that he needs to get home that evening, that she believes that somebody's after their son, and she's freaked out, and Dylan's freaked out, and he needs to come home. So he comes home, and on his way home, apparently 8 p.m. is a very, very late time for him, and he falls asleep at the wheel and is killed by Freddy. Heather, who was asleep at the time, also weird that she was asleep at 8 o'clock in the evening, um, was dreaming about his death and awakens. She tells Dylan that everything is fine, but as she tells him that, the police already show up at her door, like immediately, to
Right.
inform her that Chase is dead. So when she gets to the hospital to identify the body, she notices the familiar knife wounds on his chest that look a little too much like Freddy's knife wounds. So after what can only be described as an interesting funeral, her and Dylan return home. She later finds Dylan watching a Nightmare on Elm Street, which of course puts her in a panic because, what mom would want their, I'm assuming about 8-year-old kid watching them in a horror film. However, Dylan is in a trance and is likely sleepwalking, and during this episode, she realizes that Dylan is dreaming about Freddy as well. Later that day, she meets John at a park to talk to him about Dylan, and Dylan climbs to the top of the most unsafe gym equipment in the world and jumps, hoping God will take him to his daddy. Heather catches Dylan before he hits the ground. And that afternoon, she decides to call Robert to talk to him, only to find out that he's dreaming about a Freddy as well. But they both decide it's not him, it's a darker version of Freddy. They agree to meet and talk the next morning, although you can tell that Robert Englund has no desire to meet with her. Creepy Dylan sleepwalks again while Freddy comes after Heather. Dylan drops a bunch of knives on the ground, and the noises awaken Heather. I'm going to call her Nancy once before this is over. I promise you.
Well, even they do at one point.
Yeah, she gets down the stairs to find Dylan with the knives taped to his fingers like a Freddy glove, and he slices at her. As she tries to stop him, she wakes up because, it wouldn't be a Nightmare on Elm Street movie without at least one dream in a dream sequence. Heather goes downstairs looking for Dylan, who is in a trance again. As she wakes him, her phone rings and it's Freddy saying, "I have touched him." And Dylan begins to have another seizure. She rushes Dylan to the hospital where he's treated, and she is told he must stay while they figure out what's going on with him. And they send her home because, all moms are going to leave their child in ICU on their own.
Naturally.
So she heads home. On the way home, she calls Robert, who's unavailable. So she decides to go on up to Wes Craven's house. Wes tells her that he is having nightmares, and they are basically writing the script for him. They have a meta conversation where he blames the watering down of the sequels and the over-commercialization of Freddy on the new evil that is using the nightmares to come through. I thought that was kind of an amazing little scene, though. and a friendly little jab at them for watering down his product. And so Wes tells Heather that she is the gatekeeper and that only she can stop Freddy if she is willing to play the role of Nancy one more time. Later that evening, as she's reading up on child psychology, trying to figure out what's going on with Dylan, another earthquake happens. And as Freddy attacks her, we realize that the earthquakes are really Freddy breaking into the world. She manages to escape. However, she now fears for Dylan alone at the hospital. She rushes to the hospital to find Julie there. Julie had also dreamt that something had happened to Dylan and showed up to check on him. The doctor at the hospital starts to blame Heather for Dylan's sleep deprivation, which she believes is causing Dylan's problems. As they question Heather, Julie stays with Dylan, trying to keep him awake. A couple of nurses give Dylan some medicine, and Julie punches one of them for her troubles. As Dylan falls asleep, Freddy shows up and kills Julie, which is a new twist on Freddy, that he can kill people that are awake as long as somebody that's asleep can see them. But this isn't your regular Freddy, so... Dylan escapes the hospital and heads home, sleepwalking his way there. There's this huge interstate scene where he manages to walk across the interstate. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Heather follows him, and eventually, through a bunch of other mishaps, they end up back home. John meets her there, but something in him changes, and he starts acting like he is her father from the movies and starts calling her Nancy. Eventually, Heather plays along and turns to go back into the house, which now, of course, looks like Nancy's childhood home from the movies. Heather finds a trail of sleeping pills that Dylan has left for her to follow, and she starts taking them because that's the logical thing to do, and overdoses and dies, and that is the end of the movie. No. She actually goes to sleep, and her and Dylan soon find themselves battling Freddy. Eventually, they get him trapped in a furnace, ending him for good. So, basic summary of the movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts, Sean?
See, this is one of those films that, like, every time I've watched it, I swear I remember liking it better than when I rewatch it. It's got
Gotcha.
creepy atmosphere right off the bat. You can tell Wes Craven's back in control.
Right.
And even with the opening creation was a straight callback to Freddy building his glove in the original movie.
Right.
But it's just like it's got really good ideas. And what actually I've been thinking about this since I watched it and we briefly talked the other day. What I think is when it came out, the meta concept was very unique. And granted, it's still one
Right.
of the first to really do this. But I guess now, because it's kind of been done, maybe the impact's lessened. Like
Maybe.
it's still not a bad film at all. But it's like, I don't know. To me, it's just like every time I see it again, it's just like a little lessened.
Well, and I'm thinking that because I watched it right on the heels of the last two movies,
Yeah.
I actually like it better than I remember.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong; it's not as good as some of the earlier Freddy movies, um, but I certainly liked it better than the last two.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's some cool things in this. Apparently, Wes Craven used a lot of real life experiences for the movie.
Right.
Heather really was dealing with a stalker.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah. And her real life husband is a special effects guy in the movie industry.
It's just crazy that he took all of these things and he actually weaved them in, right?
Right. I mean, he went full meta, like you said, which is the idea. But
Right.
like they even approached her husband to play the role, and he just wasn't confident himself to be on camera. So
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Yeah, that's kind of cool though.
yeah, like he wanted to go full like behind the curtain, even and like the whole
Gotcha.
the scene of when Robert England comes on the TV show in full Freddy thing. While it didn't exactly happen that way, it was an experience of like it was Wes Craven. I want to say maybe Robert England. They were on a show, though England wasn't in character or in costume. But like there was a bunch of kids in the audience, and they were both kind of acknowledging like how weird it was that this Freddy character, a child murderer, was getting cheered by kids in the audience. And that's kind of what was the beginning of the inspiration for this film.
Well, yeah, I mean, I read that little thing too, and I was like, that's kind of crazy. You go in and you've got all these parents sitting there, and you're talking about how is Freddie healthy for children or not? Is the whole mythos healthy? And then the kids start chanting Freddie,
Right.
Freddie, Freddie. That would just be.
Yeah.
But also the kid that played Dylan,
Right.
Miko, his dad, his real life father happens to be in special effects too.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of like that was interesting that they were able to find a kid that was also, his father also had the same role as his father in the movie.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it was his dad,
No,
not her
Heather.
husband.
No, it's both. It's
Oh,
both.
okay, okay.
Yeah, it was kind of amazing that they found like, a son that could play that part and was sufficiently creepy.
Right.
That his dad had the same job as her husband.
Right. Okay. Okay.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was trying to remember. It's been a little while since I took my notes.
Yeah. So, yeah, Heather, her acting ability had really improved by the time this movie came around.
Oh, absolutely.
She was a lot better in this movie than in the first. Not that she was ever really bad, but there's a level of acting that you allow for a horror movie versus what you would allow for something else.
Right.
And she was certainly very adequate for a horror movie. But I felt that her acting in this movie had taken a big jump up.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
You can just really tell, like, just it's the years. She's steadily done like television roles, and I think she appeared in a few other movies. So yeah, you can just see a natural progression of her acting ability, and it really showed, I think, in this film, especially if you only really been following the Nightmare series.
Right, right. And of course, like we talked about, Miko's just a crazy, creepy little kid. And he was sufficiently creepy in this movie
He
as he
was.
was intended to be. Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on the uh, I would say, new and improved design on Freddy?
Really
Did you
like it.
feel like it was? Yeah, I was going to say, did you feel like it was an improvement, or did you prefer the old version?
Actually, I always dig it. The like from the more demonic facial, not like when he went full demon, like even like
Right,
just when he first showed up, the burn makeup. And again, this is the evolution of a series where, like, while the previous films, the makeup change improved sometime, and though some of the lesser ones you could tell they kind of lightened up the makeup just to get kind of a
right,
basic thing for him. This was, as Craven even put it, this is like closer to now what they had the money and the skill. This is closer to how he always envisioned Freddy. I like the more felt like hat
yeah,
matching with the sweater and the addition of just the trench coat and the glove.
right,
The glove, I I do like it because I'm actually a really big fan of the movie posters of the original,
right.
of the early stuff, and how they always did the hand and the glove is designed after that in this. And I get that and I like that, but it do, I do still like the glove, the actual, the one we've seen throughout the movie series. So, like, I like and don't like the new hand, the new glove, if you would. But overall, yeah, I do like the new design.
Yeah, I liked it too. I liked. I thought it was a cleaner design.
Yeah.
Um, uh, the hat to me was probably my least favorite part, but
Oh, okay.
just because of the coloring of it. But overall, yeah, I like the new design. I thought he looked much more evil in
Right.
this as opposed to scarred, which I think was the point, anyways, is to look more demonic.
Right. Right.
But like you said, also just having the money now to be able to design him the way that Wes Craven had originally envisioned him.
Right.
So yeah, there were a few cameos in this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Wes Craven's daughter was in it as one of the nurses, Jessica
Right.
Craven. And then Lynn Shay from Insidious makes yet another appearance
Oh yeah.
in a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. This time as one of the nurses. So, did you have some additional cameos?
There was like just more not people, but like you can see like on Wes Craven's desk, it has a the photo of Nancy is the photo her dad had of her in his
I didn't
office.
catch that.
There's like a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of scattered props basically throughout.
Right.
On top of course those actors, I was definitely going to mention Shay because again
Yeah.
she's popping right back up into the rank because her husband is
I
still a producer into this film again.
yeah, I think this was her third appearance in one of these.
Yep.
So,
Oh yeah, but there's this that, and there's like little things like you notice when John Saxton starts referring to her as Nancy, and that's like the subtle callbacks, like when she started realizing like okay, so there's then she suddenly had her white streak again,
right.
and like just those little nods from she I remember, yeah, she even did the whole I don't need screw your past again, like
Oh, yeah.
yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of callbacks and stuff like that in there, as well as like you said, yeah, there's like his Craven's daughter and Shay, and just there was supposed to be a lot more cameos. One, I read a story of Wes Craven being, I mean, I don't know the man. I guess maybe he can be shy at times because he said he wanted Johnny Depp to be at the funeral scene,
That
and
would have been really cool.
and he said he was literally too scared to talk to him. 'Cause, at this point, Depp is Johnny Depp. He's huge,
Yeah.
and he said he bumped into him at like a red carpet event, and happened to bring it up, and Depp was like, "You should have asked. I totally would have done that." Like don't
Which
ever
is weird because,
hesitate.
well, I mean, it's weird because they had already had Johnny Depp make a cameo.
Right. I
So
mean,
why would you be scared to ask him just a couple of years later?
that's just Wes
I guess it's
Craven.
because, yeah, Wes Craven being Wes Craven.
Guess so.
Uh,
There was I don't remember how we ever pronounced his name, but in the funeral scene, there's actors like Jisoo, I think is however you said his name, or he was the boyfriend that got choked from the first one in the prison in jail.
oh, the one that hung himself, but
Yeah,
it was really Freddie
yeah,
hanging him.
yeah.
Yeah.
He was at the funeral session as well.
Oh, I didn't catch that. Oh, that's pretty
Oh,
cool.
I wouldn't have known if I didn't read it in the like little trivia notes because I
Oh, okay.
hadn't seen him since the first movie. So, but yeah, so
Well, then they had actually asked her. No, I guess they asked her what if she would ever allow her son to be around Robert. Is what they asked.
right,
Yeah,
but yeah,
in
but
the interview. Yeah,
right. So yeah, there's a lot of there's, like I said, little things like that, and I know I'm sure I'm forgetting some like little props and little references are just scattered throughout, especially towards the end when like the world starts to blend into the movie versus reality with everything going on, and of course we had the what was it Freddy getting killed by fire again. I kind of thought was
yeah.
with the heavy foreshadowing of reading the Hansel and Gretel story to the creepiest kid in the world who can just quote the death scene.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was a pretty heavy-handed foreshadowing, but yet there it was.
Right.
But it worked well. It played into the mythos really well, and it makes you wonder if that wasn't part of his plan all along.
Right.
Wes Craven's a pretty smart guy.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Also, the freeway scene. I don't know if this was intended or not, but with Miko having played Gage, which is a kid that gets ran over and killed by a truck in Pet Cemetery.
Right.
You wonder if that wasn't a bit of a nod to that he barely escapes getting hit by a truck.
I could see that, and yeah, I don't remember reading if it confirming if it was, but yeah, I mean that at least the parallel is definitely there. Which sadly also is like this one of my least favorite moments in this film.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
The
It was yeah.
the green screen effects don't hold up, and the Freddy lifting him up into the air was just for a movie that really brought back the tension and the creepiness. That was a very
Right.
silly moment for this film.
Yeah, which I think was really their intention with the movie. Not necessarily that scene, but overall with the movie was to get back to a much darker,
Yeah,
less comical version of Freddy.
right.
And I feel like they did that really well throughout most of the movie.
Oh, for sure.
I think what this movie lacked maybe was that opening sequence that they usually have, which is really a tense, suspenseful
Right.
scene. And I think it missed that in this movie. I mean, yeah, it started with a dream sequence that was, ultimately a couple of people died, but there was really no tension to it.
Right. Yeah, it definitely didn't have the like they had the twist of it being the dream and the twist of like the hand
Right.
and all that stuff, but it didn't have the normal like in the better done nightmare films how the opening dream sequence had that creepy atmosphere, that very heavy tension to it. You know what I mean? Like you could otherworldly feel. This one didn't because I think it was because of the meta they were trying to go for the entire film. He didn't want to create
Yeah.
that atmosphere this time around.
But I think it missed a little something not having it.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
that could just be me, but I feel like that, and not just there, but even when they kind of do the throwback to John Saxon thinking that she's Nancy and she just plays along with it, and he drives off in the same car that he had in the
right,
movie, and she turns around and it's her house, but it's not the creepy house. It's not, it's kind of brightly painted, and it's not what we have been seeing in the last few movies.
yeah. It was a
It,
throwback to it was a complete throwback to the house in part one, which actually had
right.
the different colored door, Like
Right.
I don't remember if we ever brought that up going through this franchise. How like the red iconic door was actually blue in the first one.
That's right.
So they even had
That's
that
right.
little detail added in for this. And of course, the house isn't all raggedy and broken down like we kind of know it as Freddy's house when it really, because it was supposed to be Nancy's. Which again, I see what they were going for, but I do agree with you that it kind of lessened the creepy value. I think
Yeah.
overall, not making it back to the dilapidated home of what they started when they started referring to it more as Freddy's home than Nancy's.
Well, I think at that point we had all kind of got the meta of the movie,
Right.
and since I had kind of like went back to the original at that point, it would have been nice to have it be kind of more creepy as she entered because it's she enters and it's just her normal home,
Right.
and so there's not even any creepiness there. Yeah, if anything, I would say that that's what this movie lacks is just the sheer creepiness. There's some tension,
Right.
there's some suspense, um, because as you said, when you have Wes Craven behind the camera and writing the movie, you're gonna have that.
Yeah.
But it really lacked in creepiness.
Yeah, I think there were some moments that it needed to be, that it definitely needed to be amped up a little bit for whatever reason.
Right,
Craven didn't go there, but there was still some good, even like granted a lot of it was the callbacks, but
right,
there was some good moments like especially when the Freddy demon itself comes into the
yeah,
world. Like we even get the babysitter getting dragged up the ceiling, callback from part one.
yep,
And
yep,
while not quite as scary, I would say, as it, because he's just mean mugging the kid, and the kid being in the room, I think, is what kind of actually brought that scene down.
right,
As compared to like which I know that was a complete callback with Dylan being just like the boyfriend with the
right.
hand out there and everything, but it tried, but like I don't know if he was just still, because we know Craven wasn't a fan of any of the sequels because he had little to do with any of them.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know why he didn't go like darker with this, as dark
Yeah.
as like it could have been. But for what we, and again, we can complain all day about what we wanted to see, but what we got is still better than a lot of the Nightmare on Elm Street films.
Oh yeah.
But
By far.
yeah, and
Eh,
the big focus I think is bringing back the creepiness of Freddy Krueger, less of the slapstick.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wasn't trying to be negative and say, this is what I wanted.
No. Yeah.
It felt like it was just something that was lacking a little bit.
Absolutely.
Um, so yeah, again, not a very high kill count in one of these movies.
Nope.
Um, None of them apparently have a high kill count. Like in my mind, I always imagine them having a lot more deaths, but
Right.
as you go back and you try and watch these, I think there's four
Four in this one.
deaths, and yeah, which it's not a lot,
Yeah,
but
that's about
I guess
average
it,
for a Nightmare.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. When you start comparing kill counts, you definitely know Jason's king, right?
Hard to top a camp full of idiot teenagers
There you
to be
go.
lined up.
Except for like I think like we won't be able to count when we get to like the third uh Hellraiser movie.
Right.
Because I mean there's no telling how many they killed in that one sequence. But yeah, so overall it's not a bad entry into the series. It's not the best entry into the series.
Right.
Kind of middle of the road. Speaking of kills, did you have a favorite kill?
Uh, and because like again, you said minimal kills.
Right.
Like two of them weren't even confirmed until later in the movie, and we never actually even
Yeah.
saw those. But
Yeah.
my favorite kill is I went and picked, and not for what actually happened necessarily on screen, but the reasoning the kill happened in the movie at all is her husband. Uh, Falling asleep at the wheel, Freddy creepily touching his crotch, and
Yeah, that was bizarre, right?
getting stabbed in the chest. Which again, a decent. Again, we're not doing the personalized, unique dream deaths or anything. But this kill is my pick because he wasn't gonna die in the movie until the studio said we need more deaths.
Oh wow.
His character was not supposed to actually die in the film in the original script, but the studio came to
I
West and was like, you need to up the body count a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you would have had three deaths.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Um, yeah, my favorite kill in this is Rex the toy dinosaur. He
Oh,
serves as
Rex.
Dylan's protector,
Yeah.
and Freddy flat out kills him so he can get to Dylan, and you find just remnants, and it looks like a dog's chew toy by the time Freddy's done with him.
Oh,
Yeah.
speaking of that, actually, I just remembered another little tidbit is that Nico kept the one with the three slashes
Oh yeah.
version of that, and Wes has the Rex, like the pristine one, the normal one. They both each kept those when after they got done filming.
That's pretty great. Yeah, that's I you know I heard that kid that Miko was like a real huge fan of the Freddy movies,
Right.
and that he would watch Robert Englund getting his makeup put on every day.
Yeah, because I mean, there's whether you can imagine with Wes the way he created, the way Freddy came about from his combination of his nightmares and his memory of apparently like a homeless person staring at him through a window or something, or at least somebody creepy
Right.
staring at him through the window. You could understand why he's creeped out by children's fascination with his creation. And so, like, I get where a lot of this came from in making the film. And overall, like we said, I think he did. It's a solid entry into the series. And like, if you had taken out a lot more, like take out a few, like especially the last two films,
Yeah.
and just went from say Dream Master into this, it would not that like you look at the franchise as a whole. I'm not going to say all the you can't say all the bad ones dragged down a series, but like it would have been very interesting to see like a few less of the movies into this series and see how this would compare. You know what I mean?
I think so, but I think that this one actually plays a little bit better because of the fact that they recognize that the series had taken such a downturn.
True, true.
So I is part of the meta of the movie. They recognize that and they play into it a little bit. Um,
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
so I guess that leaves the rating as what's about left.
Really, yeah. Because I mean, like it's I said, some of the films we know we've dived deeper in a bit longer, but this one, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, and it's just a lot of
It
like,
is.
hey, these are the real actors' lives, on film. So but that being said, it is for the time it came out, it was a very unique take. I had never seen a film myself that really went behind the scenes like that of actually diving into the characters, and that was kind of the intention of the way they filmed it. They kind of wanted the BA. And at the time, I remember feeling weird about it because I didn't know how to grasp the almost documentary style of
Right.
seeing their lives. And so, and for that, I give them credit. And I just think the uniqueness of that has kind of worn through the years. But
Right.
again, still an overall solid entry, despite some, like I said, goofy stuff with the highway, with Freddy lifting
Right.
Dylan up in the air, and some of Nico's performances. But I'm not gonna be mean to I think he was probably 9 at the time of
Yeah.
filming this.
Right.
So I still give it a 3 stars. So it's
You gave
like
it three.
yeah, middle of the road. Some good ideas that could have been better. That could have been darker. I think towards the end, especially. But overall, still a solid entry.
Yeah, I give it a 2.5, which
Yep.
was right in the middle, kind of where I figured. Uh, so we're pretty close on that.
Yeah.
That's a total of 5.5 for this entry into this series.
Right.
Um, Next week, I guess we're gonna do the remake,
Yes, sir.
the reimagining, whatever you want to call it.
We get the good reboot that's gonna warm us up to the main event.
Yeah. Then we get to come back to the Versus movie, which we've been kind of waiting for. It's been a while since I've seen it, so
Same.
be
Same.
interesting. Yeah. So, well, if that's all we got, John.
Yeah, I think that's gonna do it. If
Yeah.
y'all, of course, if y'all liked what you have heard, you know the drill by now. We're 19 episodes in. Like, comment,
Yeah.
subscribe. Comments, oh, especially. Let us know what you thought about this film. Did you, when you first saw it, did you enjoy the meta, or did you think that was, kind of a strange thing to do? Especially if you saw it back that day. I'm really curious about people who watched it back then when it was a very unique concept, or even now. Like, is it now that you've seen it, do you think this movie, even though it was the original, doesn't hold up to some of the other meta horror films out there? Let us know what you think. And as always, yeah, like, comment, subscribe, share it around, and yeah, we'll catch y'all next week.
See you next week.